Welcome to You Don't Know Ball. Today, we are going to be doing team previews for every team in the NFC North. If you haven't seen already, we've done team previews for the AFC North, NFC East, and AFC East. We're going to be doing them for every team in the NFL. Let's get this started right away. We are going to start off with the narrative for the Chicago Bears, and I think, last year we were kind of sold some snake oil. Not gonna lie, I was selling a little bit of snake oil. I was bought in. I was drinking the snake oil, the Justin Fields juice. Hold on. But is the hype real for the Chicago Bears this year is the question. I would like to say yes. Obviously, Dobbs, I'm going to let you kind of go off on this. I'm going to, as much as I would like to keep my bias out, I've been talking in some of my group chats, and it's getting really hard to contain my excitement. I've been able to hold it back quite a bit this year, where I've kind of treated it like, oh yeah, whatever. But what I've heard coming out of camp has been, I don't want to get too excited. So go ahead. Why don't you talk about the Bears before I do?
Well, I'm just going to end up getting excited for you, but that's okay. So again, I always like to put the Bears in like the frame of reference for me and you, because again, the Chicagoland life, it's like, you're a Bears fan and I'm in the area, right? Like I see the Bears fans, like how they're going about the offseason, how they're digesting it. And to your point, you know what? It's true, Hunter. We were sipping crazy snake oil last year.
We were sipping some shit.
We were drunk as shit off of the Justin Fields snake oil last year. It was like crazy. But that is truly because, again, to put it in perspective, the Bears have definitely, and I mean this for real, I truly believe that, the Justin, it didn't pan out. But I think little decisions have definitely been on the right track for the last few years now, right? Like we've been on a track where it's like, okay, I like that. I like that. I like that. And then this offseason, it was like, okay, I really like that. And then last year it was very contingent upon, though, Justin making a big leap. And not as a runner. We already knew he was one of the best runners, not fuck running back. He was one of the best runners of the football in general. It doesn't matter what position you're talking of the football. There was nothing he had to grow in that area. We already knew that was going to be a big part of the Bears game. We knew, right? He had to become a much, much better passer. And if he did, the Bears would have really had probably a long-term vision on Justin, where that's the snake oil we were sipping, right? But obviously far from what came to fruition. But this season is just, the offseason is just different. For multiple reasons. But the biggest reason is, as I've been saying, look, we're at the point now where I've been seriously actually having off seasons scouting the college classes for about 4 or 5 years. And I'm talking about actually seriously getting in, watching tape, actually taking notes and taking it seriously. I say far and away again. I remind everybody about this every time I have a chance because it's very true. Caleb Williams was far and away the greatest prospect I've ever watched in terms of raw talent. Right. Like he might not have been the most X's and O's dominant, he's making the right decision every play kind of prospect. But as far as raw talent, he truly was the greatest raw talent I've ever seen in that coming into the NFL. So it's a different level of hype, and rightfully so. Chicago got what potentially could very well be a Hall of Fame. I expect, which is crazy words, I expect a Hall of Fame trajectory career out of this quarterback. And I don't say this lightly. I don't ever say it about really any college prospect coming in, but Caleb Williams truly has that type of talent where it's like, if we see him at his peak, he's going to change the entire NFC North, and he's going to change the Bears' history forever, right? And those are big, deep words, but I truly believe them, which is why I'm saying them on air. So, we've hit a point where in one off season we went, and again, I like to bring back to the reality of this was not really supposed to happen. Ryan Poles pulled one of the greatest trades off in history, thinking very far in advance, crystal balling, having faith that the Panthers would be the worst team in football, and it ended up working out perfectly. He couldn't have played it any better if he tried to. It was King Poles' masterclass, as the Bears fans like to say, right? It really was. It was King Poles he was cooking on the phones all over the last 2 or 3 years, right? You have to give credit where it's due, because that's what I wanted to bring up next is I think what kind of ties into where the Bears are really changing as a franchise is you can see now Ryan Poles has really elevated himself into that range of he's not going to be satisfied. There are going to be moves drastic moves being made every year that the success is not being reached, which is what you'd love to see. Now, again, doing a little reverse, maybe we were all a little surprised that Flus got to keep his job another year and that they didn't do a clean house wipe, given what I just said. But again, I think they wanted to give Flus his own guy, right? Give him a fair chance with his quarterback, which is what they're doing. And you have to respect it. And the bottom line is this. When you bring in Caleb, when you bring in Rome, you bring in Keenan Allen, DeAndre Swift, the myriad of other talent that this team has spent money on and drafted this year, I think there's no way you can't say, if you're looking in the mirror honestly, unless you're a rival NFC North fan, that the Bears are one of the most exciting teams in the league. And that's just truly the bottom line at this point. Again, now how much are they going to excite us this year specifically is to be determined. But as far as the long-term trajectory window goes, you know what, Hunter? You guys are definitely now all of a sudden in that range where it's like, we really legitimately have potentially, if Caleb can stay healthy and we can develop him, we have a 5 to 10 year Super Bowl window, which is the best feeling to have as a franchise because not a lot of teams get to really feel that. But that's really where it feels like the Bears have kind of landed themselves now.
I feel like the biggest thing in terms of like difference from like years I've gotten hyped about the Bears from like last year and the year before compared to this year is you always had to kind of sell yourself on the roster. You always had to kind of be like, well, if this pans out, there's no panning out for the wide receiver room. There's no panning out for the running back room. There's no panning out for the cornerback room. There's no panning out for the linebacker room. The O-line is decent. I'm not going to sell. Let's say the O-line is average. Or O-line is average, right? If you have an average O-line and the biggest need is just another pass rusher, which you can go get at the trade deadline probably, if you want, this team, you don't have to sell anybody on this team. If Caleb Williams is supposed to be what he's supposed to be, the roster is ready to win. There is no selling with this team. And I think that's kind of the biggest thing is I always felt like from the Bears perspective, coaches, media, they were selling me the success. You don't have to sell success when your product is just good. The product will sell itself. And I think that's kind of what the Bears are supposed to be this year. And I think that's why I'm the most excited because people forget how good the defense was this last year. The cornerback room is really good. The linebacker room is really good. I'm very excited for Austin Booker, the DN they took in the 4th round, or the 5th round, I believe, and they gave up a 4th this year. But I've been hearing a lot of good things in camp, so very excited for what the Bears can be this year. No more Justin Fields snake oil for us. Just Caleb Williams, hopefully real juice this time.
No, yeah. And one last thing I want to say before we move on to the next team here is, I think there's something that maybe will comfort Bears fans to remember. Maybe some of them don't really ever think about it if they didn't watch a lot of Caleb in college. Look, Caleb is used to playing with how's the nicest way to say this? A pretty bad O-line, right? Like Caleb Williams never had a really good line at all. So it's not like having situations where he's going to be under pressure here and there is going to really affect him. No, that actually is kind of sometimes where he thrives best. So, and I think that's it, right. We're going to tune it out. But the bottom line is it's not like he's one of these guys coming from Georgia or Bama where you're coming into a system where I was used to being protected like a brick wall around me every single play. And then going to a situation where you're going to feel like you have plywood around you. Like, no, Caleb's basically was used to already having plywood around him. So I would say even realistically, he's probably making a jump as far as how comfortable he's going to feel in this pocket versus how he felt the last 2 years, right, in that USC pocket.
100%. I think a huge thing is the supporting cast.